Okay. All right, everyone. Welcome to our Medicine Buddha practice. Welcome to those who are new to our space in this session. I'm Lama Rod. I use he, him pronouns, and I am living and practicing and teaching on the unceded lands of the Cherokee, Muskogee, and Creek people, what we call Atlanta, or the ATL, as we say in Atlanta. And this is, well, at least in America, I know people are tuning in from different countries. And here in America, this is Indigenous Peoples Day, which was named first after another person whom we're not going to talk about. So I want to, for our practice today, I actually want us to do our land recognition practice. I think we did maybe late August or mid-August. And then we'll move from there into our main practice. I think today I want to do a little bit of work. I'm having some computer issues here. Sorry. I think that's right. My computer wants to update all of a sudden. If I get knocked off or shut down, I'll be right back on, probably with another device. But I don't think anything's happening anymore. Yeah, but anyhow. Yeah, so working with, I think, some chakras today, just moving energy up the chakra system, which is the subtle energy body work, which is so much a part of healing. And as always, if you're new, I encourage you to just add prayer request, which is just right in the chat box here. You also see an ask a question box, and you can put questions in there as we begin. I think today I may start with the prayer request. So if we can go ahead and just put those in as soon as you can if you have any prayer requests. As you're doing that, I do have, looks like there's one question here, which I think I'll go ahead and answer as we come into the room. Yeah, so last week I said I am no longer interested in people that do not want to be saved. And this is a question from Stevie. So I was taken aback by this comment, and it is a very strong comment. It's a very strong sentiment. And I sat with it in session, and now I think I get the meaning that makes sense to me, that those who are not interested in truth can move through their life in the way that they choose. Yeah. I mean, for the first part of that reflection, what are we really choosing, though, is my question. I don't know if this asks a question or an answer to your reflection, but I think there's something to be said about the real reality of karma. Here, that karma is, there's so many ways to think about karma, but karma creates patterns of behavior, but these patterns of behavior are set by previous patterns of behavior. So karma is like a training, right? It's training us to do something in particular. And in terms of Buddha Dharma, karma is being trained to get us free. Like we're training in karma to get free from delusion, or we're training in karma to get deeper in delusion. And the deeper or the stronger certain karma, well, the stronger the influence certain karmas have, the harder it is to make different choices that go against that karma, right? So like when you have like a negative karma, right, it's difficult to make choices that are more virtuous and good, right? And the same can be said with positive karma, which can be turned into merit, right? That it's harder to do negative things when you're trained so deeply in that positive karma and merit, which we call virtue. Like so, okay. So I don't know if that helped or not, but anyhow. So the point of this, people are doing things. They're on the path, right? And but for those of us who do live our truth, we will continue to represent, but no longer waste this precious rebirth in defending or even convincing others. Am I close? Well, right. Well, yes and no. Like, we're always practicing compassion for people, for ourselves and for others, right? So that's always happening. That should always be happening. But when I say, I'm no longer interested in people that don't want to be saved, because being saved is an experience of consent. I have to consent to getting free. Like, I can't be pulled and dragged to freedom. If that were the case, right, Jesus would have saved all of us. But that wasn't the case, right? We have to make conscious choices to get free. And if I try to free you, then, and if you don't want to be free, right, then I think that becomes an act of violence, right? And the best thing that I can do is just simply embody this project of liberation, right? I can just simply live my life and allow people to witness that and allow people to see what it looks like for someone who's embodied to get free. And then from that, then maybe that begins to influence people to think about freedom in different ways, to start making different choices, right? So it's not that I don't care, but it's a shift in energy. Instead of me just trying to like grab people and say, come on, let's get out of here. Like, doing that takes energy away from people who are already ready to do the work, right? And so that's the shift. That's the kind of thing that I'm talking about here with that statement. I think a lot of us spend a lot of energy trying to convince people to do things that they won't ever do. And I believe that seeing is believing, right? I grew up in religious community, Christian Black church community, and there was a lot of talking about what freedom looked like. But for me, I wanted to see it. I wanted to see someone practice freedom. I think that is part of our bodhisattva activity right now, is to simply embody what it looks like to be kind, to be compassionate, to be considerate, to be grounded. Like, let people see it, and if they see it, they can experience it. You don't have to say anything. Like, I don't have to proselytize, right? I'm not out on the street corner proselytizing, right? I don't go out of my way to proselytize. But when you come, like, you can come to this session, or you can go to, like Instagram or something like that. And I'm definitely expressing what I believe to be truth, but I'm not going out of that, right, to try to grab people necessarily. So So this is also a question about this is about getting clear about what your work is. Like, what is it you're supposed to be doing, essentially? And some of us are doing things that we shouldn't be doing. And I'm not talking about unvirtuous things. I'm talking about we're just doing things, we're taking on work that's not our work. And that's leaving us really depleted. And this shift that I'm moving into, as this is like my retreat season. The fall is always, as I was saying before, this is ceremony season. We're in the celebration of the mother right now, in Vedic Hindu tradition. So this is also contributing to what I'm thinking about right now. But one of my personal commitments right now and reflections is to let go of stuff that I don't need to do. It's to let go of relationships, let go of interactions, let go of organizations, and get focused. Get really focused about what's happening now. And that's part of the healing work. That's part of healing. When you stop spending energy on things you don't need to be spending energy on, and then reinvesting that energy back into your life and into the lives of the people that you're responsible for and you're caring for, then that begins to transform how we move through the world. And so anyway, if you have more questions, go ahead and put them. I probably will get started with practice soon. What is this question? I was a little thrown by mention of Jesus, that Jesus would have saved us all. I love this space and practice, but you believe in saving outside of Jesus, right? Yeah, I believe we save ourselves. And that is what we do in Dharma. The Buddha isn't saving us, right? It's through our own diligence and effort that we save ourselves. And that's what you have to contend with. It's like, at the end of the day, I have to rely on my own labor to get clear, right? To get clear, which is wisdom, and to get empathic or empathetic about my experience and the experience of others, which is compassion. And you may say, there are, we may have experiences where someone comes along and does something, right, really powerful, but that wasn't random. Like, we have created the causes and conditions for the kinds of teachings that we get to help us to get free, right? Like, we've worked in the past to be open to the teachings that come along that create some type of really powerful impact for us. Nowhere, in the Bodhisattva material does it say that the Bodhisattva is going to free everyone. The Bodhisattva works to free people. But the Bodhisattva works to help people create the causes and conditions for themselves, for them to move through and over the threshold move over the threshold into enlightenment. But our willingness to work is the consent that what I'm talking about. You have to be willing. Essentially, you have to be willing to experience your life and your karma and your mind and your body, which means that we experience the trauma, we experience the hurt, the brokenheartedness, as well as the joy. Feeling happy isn't the same thing as experiencing happiness, right? Like, I can be happy, but am I actually showing up to happiness? Like, am I feeling happiness in my body, right? Am I giving happiness away? Like, that's when we start experiencing happiness. When I'm so embodied by happiness that I am not afraid of giving it away. That's when you're experiencing it. That's sympathetic joy practice, right? Giving away all of that. You know. I'm going to answer this one last question, and then we'll get started. Practicing with your instructions has been a form of activist rehab for me, and considering the ideas of getting free and not trying to make others do the work, do you have thoughts on the value of direct action, being in the streets, lobbying elected officials? Sure, like that's all still important. Like you're not. So I see this as a form of education, right? Direct action. It's like you're bringing awareness to something, right? After that, then people have to make a choice to get with it or not. It's like, if are people making choices to really understand what's at stake through the direct action? Like when we're like when people are blocking traffic, right? That's getting people's attention. It's disruption, right? And after that, it's up to the people who feel disrupted to connect to why people are disrupting them. Like what's so important that someone will will put their bodies, in harm's way to get your attention. But having said all of that, right, we have to balance our activism with the reality that we're still in samsara, that you're not going to change samsara. Samsara isn't a project that we can use direct action to disrupt. Samsara is disrupting us. That's what samsara does. So you have to care about people. You have to care about change. You have to care about freedom, knowing that freedom has to happen through individual labor, and that this reality of delusion is inherently fixed. Like, this is what happens. People suffer, right? In samsara. What I am trying to do is disrupt my relationship with delusion. And as I disrupt my relationship with delusion, then I'm disrupting my relationship with samsara. When that's disrupted, people will see you doing something different. They'll say, oh, like, what are you doing? You seem to be clearer. You don't seem to be overwhelmed. It's because you've disrupted that delusion. And a tiny bit of disruption actually goes quite a long way. In creating and carving out space to be in the world. Like, I'm in the world. I'm in samsara, but like, I'm not overwhelmed necessarily by samsara. Samsara is an experience. I get that this realm is based on suffering and desire. Like, that's not news to me anymore, because I've practiced with that. I get that there's violence. I get that there is hate. I get that there's so much happening that's not good, that's not conducive, right, to peace and harmony and happiness, right? And you recognize it, you name it, you mourn it. You allow the mourning to allow you to enter into spaciousness, right? So this sounds familiar for those of you who just concluded going to the Lonesome Valley with me. Like, this is what we've been talking about during the course. It's like, I have to mourn. Mourning is experiencing the brokenheartedness of being in a situation which I feel like I don't have agency in. Like, we don't have the agency to change samsara, but we do have the agency to change our relationship to samsara, right? And this is what we try to do in deity practices, working with Medicine Buddha and so forth. You're trying to develop a different experience of who and what you are, instead of letting samsara reflect back to you what it thinks you are. Which is deluded and sad and depressed and this and that and so forth. You're earning a different understanding of what you are in the practice, which begins to disrupt what samsara is trying to reflect back to you about who you are. Which is amazing, right? But again, you have to get clear about this. And some of you still need to work on your clarity about what it is you're trying to do. Are you trying to get comfortable or happy, or are you trying to get free? Because these are two different things. And just being happy and comfortable isn't actually going to get you free. But when we shoot for ultimate freedom, then part of that path is the experience of happiness and joy and equanimity, and love and compassion, right? But the thing is, you have to refocus all of that. It's like my focus is getting free. Like, I don't sit around and fixate on happiness and joy and all of that. I rather fixate on getting free. Like, what does it mean to get free? What does it mean to be non-dual? What does it mean to follow the middle path, right? Between extremes. What does it mean to see the nature of things? Like, if you focus on that, all this other stuff happens, right? But if you just focus on the happiness, then that's a very limited path that keeps you stuck. Of course, you may feel good, but we're not trying to stay here. Like, no matter how wonderful your life is, and I have literally met people who, everything has gone very well for them in their life. Like, I've had these conversations with people where they've I haven't really suffered that much. I've had a good life. And I say, oh, how wonderful, right? But, but you're still in samsara, right? And samsara is a conditional state, is conditional. Is that, what do I mean by that, conditional? Conditional, well, I wouldn't even say conditional. I would say, yeah, I would say conditional and say that the conditions are your investment in delusion and your investment in a lack of awareness. That's the conditions of samsara, right? But again, like, what's your goal? Like, once you start really getting serious about ultimate freedom, then you will see boundaries and your focus in the world change. You'll see a kind of wisdom emerge, right? Because you begin to understand that this is not our home. Like, the essence, the emptiness, the spaciousness of all phenomena, that's our home. That's what we're trying to get back to, right? We're trying to move from the delusion of the world into the clarity of the nature of things, of everything. So much of that is about surrendering into what, I'm really talking about the Dharmakaya. For those of you who've been around Tibetan Buddhism, but Dharmakaya is the expression, it's the emptiness of all phenomena, right? It's like the lack of inherent nature of all things. That's Dharmakaya. That's what we're trying to return back to. That's our home, right? Not the delusion, not the world of phenomena, but the experience of emptiness is what we're trying to return to. Emptiness, space, which I've talked about a lot, and so you can go, in these past sessions. So deity practice is a doorway that opens us up to the experience of emptiness, right? If we can surrender to it, if we can let ourselves be held by that emptiness, which we also call the mother, right? Emptiness and space we call the mother because everything arises out of that. There would be no existence without emptiness, space, and this quality of energy, which we call luminosity or also. Right? The luminosity is the energy from which phenomena arises. Emptiness, spaciousness is the space needed for this energy to arise, and the emptiness is what gives the arising of this energy limited potentiality to manifest in whatever. Phenomenal reality is limitless. It's without boundaries. There are countless worlds and planes of existence. There are countless kinds of beings, and time is non-linear. Everything is possible, everything is happening, because everything is just a thought, right? If my mind is also an expression of this emptiness and luminosity and space, right, then my mind is basically the heart of phenomenal reality. Or another way to put that is that, like, my mind is the essence of everything. So phenomenal reality is an expression of this emptiness and space and luminosity. Then, and if my mind is also the expression of the same thing, then there's no difference, right? So when we say, that my mind pervades everything, it's simply saying that, like, the essence of my mind is the same essence of all phenomenal reality, is one essence. So when I think, I am creating reality, and of course we create narratives, and then from those narratives we create reality, and that reality can become a reality for me, right, if that thought is strong enough. And particularly if we're not, if we're disembodied, right, when we pass into the bardo of the spirit realm, a thought becomes a reality, right? And this is why we train so hard in meditation, to begin to retrain our minds, so that when we enter, when we leave the body into the spirit world, bardo, like, our thoughts aren't just arising, creating realities for us that we have to deal with, because that's how a hell realm emerges, right? It's this, a kind of experience that's really uncomfortable. It's really hard. It's a thought, and it's also an emotion, right? If our, for instance, rage or anger is just super out of control, then that's going to create a reality for us. That's real for us. Ultimately not real. Nothing's real, right? But relatively it becomes real. Like, samsara is real for us, but ultimately it's not real. Like, but in this moment it's real. This is why, going back to the very beginning, this is why we have to consent to do this, because no one can do this for you. No one can just, like, snap their fingers, right, and say, okay, get awakened, because it takes incredible amount of labor over countless lifetimes to be able to get this, to get the point of all of this. Like is this particular path of freedom, which we call Buddha Dharma, which Buddhism doesn't really exist outside of this reality, but we have these words and images and phrases which we call Buddhism, and what Buddhism says, is that, what does Buddhism say? I think I lost my train of thought. What Buddhism says is that, Buddhism is about the experience, and it says that we have to experience things to get free from it. Like, you can't push something to the side and say, okay, I've dealt with it, that's bypassing, right? You have to go into it and experience that and then release it, right? It's the snow, it's the snow process. You see it, you name it, right? You own it, you see it as part of your experience, and you experience it. What does it feel like? You get curious, and then, once you've had enough, right, you let it go, and you just kind of let it float out there, right? That letting it float is really important, because it's about being in a relationship with something where we're just allowing something to be there. Just letting it be there. That's what it means to let something float. You just let it be there. Okay? So I'm going to begin our practice. So I want to actually, again, begin with our prayer requests, and then we'll move into the our land kind recognition practice. Then we'll start working with some of the energy from the earth, and get into our mantra practice and so forth. But to begin, speaking of mantra, I want to begin with our kind of opening mantra, which is Om Minla Sangye Kino Soha. Om Minla Sangye Kino Soha, which Minla Sangye meaning is the Tibetan name for medicine Buddha. Minla is Buddha. Minla is medicine. Sangye means Buddha, but particularly means purified. So the purified one of medicine, the great Buddha of medicine, whatever. Kino, to know, to think. Soha, may it be so, right? So Minla Sangye Kino Soha. This mantra helps to invite the energy, the presence of medicine Buddha into the space, right? Begins to align our minds, our energy bodies, our physical bodies, as well as our mental bodies with this awakened consciousness of the medicine Buddha, right? Which medicine Buddha being a wisdom deity means that medicine Buddha is a deity that arises directly from the Dharmakaya, from the emptiness, right? Opposed to being necessarily a worldly deity, which we've talked about before. A worldly deity meaning a deity who may exist in another plane, who may have a lot of power, who is connected to this world, but may not be enlightened, right? But regardless of that enlightenment, many of these worldly beings are still good and virtuous and trying to help, and so they can sometimes take on the appearance and the form of wisdom deities to help, but we're calling in the energy, the consciousness. We're chanting into the emptiness and asking essentially the emptiness to manifest the consciousness, the enlightened consciousness of medicine Buddha, to begin to fill the space with that consciousness, so we can step into that consciousness in order to be held and to be healed, right? So we're going to do the mantra, we're going to move into our prayers, and then we're going to move into our land acknowledgement practice, and then into our main practice for the night. Okay, so we'll begin. So again, Om Minla Sangye Kino Soha. 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 So allowing ourselves to feel the presence of the awakened consciousness of Medicine Buddha, of Minla Sangye. If you don't feel anything, that's fine, but it could be just a trust, right? That you've called in energy that's beneficial and benevolent and compassionate. It's holding us in this space. It's actually holding whatever formless beings are around you in this space, be it ancestors or other spirits. The consciousness of the wisdom deity permeates all planes, all worlds of existence. We can go a little further and we can invite our benefactors, our 7 homecoming circle, into the space as well. So any beings that love us, who care for us, inviting those beings to be with us, our teachers, guides, spiritual friends, our dharmas, our wisdom texts. We can invite our communities, the earth, our ancestors, our lineages into this space. And as always, we call into the space what we need. We exclude those resources that we don't need. This is your space. You have agency to create it in any way that you want. You're the bouncer at the club, so you have the right to reject people or beings that aren't in line with your project of getting free. I'm beginning to feel the radiance of care being generated from this circle, that's beginning to emanate into the space around you, this energy of care, of deep love, deep compassion, empathy. And beginning to allow yourself to be filled with this energy of care. Again, drinking deeply from every pore opening in your body. Just allow yourself to just maybe inhale deeply through every opening in your body, this energy of care, so it gets deep and saturated into the body. And mixed with this energy of care is the consciousness of Medicine Buddha as well. And we turn our attention to our prayer requests. And again, I ask all benevolent beings to hear and hold our prayer requests, and we ask them to work and act on our behalf to bring about the best possible outcome for all the prayers that we've offered. So to all the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Yadams, Dharma protectors, to all the angels, to all the gurus and spirits, to God, the Mother, to all saints, to all great change makers, to all benevolent beings, we ask you to hear these prayer requests, and we ask you to act on our behalf to create the change that we're praying for in the lives of those we're offering prayers for. And we begin by offering prayers for my family and myself, offering prayers for Alex and Laura, offering prayers for Maria, Ambrosio, and Jayen, who recently passed into the bardo. Offering prayers for Linda and Bibi with health concerns, prayers for Wanda, Corin, and Bella for their health, prayers for Connie for physical recovery, and offering prayers for clarity and kindness, offering prayers for our earth to return to indigeneity, for our communities to center indigenous wisdom, for nonviolence in all forms, offering prayers for my sister Militia as we observe the recent anniversary of her difficult passing. May she continue to find freedom. May my siblings' hearts heal. Continue to offer prayers for Evan, who is at odds with his physical, mental, and spiritual health, and for his family. Prayers for Emily as she makes choices and changes for her self-care. We're offering prayers for my friend Chris, who transitioned and left her skin. May her transition through the bardo be filled with lights and without obstacles. Prayers for her 2 children and their father as they move through their grief. Prayer that my heart stays strong and open as I continue to do my healing work. We're offering prayers for Robin, who recently transitioned to the bardo, for John, who has had a coronary event and is on life support with little brain activity. Also prayers for Bruce, who is recovering from surgery, prayers for Bobby, who is recovering from a fracture, and prayers for Jeff, who is facing multiple eye surgeries. Offering prayers for my own anxiety, which seems to be both collective and personal, and for the anxiety all around the world during this time. Prayers for Shia Eisenberg and his wife, Bahira Sugarman, for Miriam Greenspan and her family after the loss of her daughter. Prayers for my children and their children. We're offering prayers for me as I navigate lots of relationship changes. Offering prayer for protection for LGBTQ plus youth who may be harmed by recent hateful comments by North Carolina Lieutenant Governor, and for LGBTQ plus religious leaders who are speaking out. Offering prayers for several of my sister's classmates who we lost to suicide. May they find peace and healing. Offering prayers for my friend Norma Brennan as she moves through the bardo. We offer prayers for uncertain hearts to find the right way forward. Offering prayers for my dad, Julian, about to become an ancestor in the process of passing. Offering prayers for granddaughter Sierra Kathleen, who's homeless, addicted, and lost and missing. Offering prayers for healing around murdered indigenous children. There have been around 6,509 bodies on earth so far. Offering prayers for Bekai, who passed recently as he is in the Bardo. Offering prayers for Falcon Collective as they defend the land and fight gentrification in Humboldt neighborhood. We're offering prayers for Angela, offering prayers for Lama Rod, who is recovering from a serious auto accident. And I'd like to offer prayers for my uncle Daniel, who will be shortly having heart surgery. I continue to offer prayers for Nina. I continue to offer prayers for Gopima and for the alleviation of all of her obstacles around sustainability and care. Offer prayers for all authentic teachers and guides and spiritual communities, that we continue all to do the work of getting free and helping others to be freed. I pray for all of us, all of those of us who are experiencing anxiety, overwhelm, depletion, who are feeling lonely and unloved. I pray that we begin to feel the resources that we need, to experience the resources that we need in order to continue to do the work of being in this world and getting free. That we all find the love that we all deserve. May all beings experience complete freedom and liberation from all forms of samsaric suffering. And offering all these prayers out into the space around us to be carried up and taken up by these beings around us committed to the liberation of all beings. Letting go of our worry and anxiety and grief, and allowing ourselves to be cared for by our benefactors, by the countless beings around us in this world who are here to care for us and to help us get free. We begin to slowly turn our attention down, first to our seat, noticing, feeling the weight of our bodies making contact with the seat. Now wonder if you can trust the seat to hold you right now. What does it mean to be held by the seat? If you don't trust anything else right now, can you trust the seat to hold you? And when you feel ready to continue, I invite you to shift your attention down into the earth, allowing your attention, the energy of your attention, to touch the energy of the land under us. And as you touch the land, I invite you just to reflect on the history of the land, even going back to the very beginning of the creation of this planet, right? Of all of the debris and rocks and asteroids in the space that started colliding together and clumping together to create this mass. And the frozen chunks of water from deep in the universe that crashed into these big chunks of rock that began to create the water that's still present on this planet. And slowly the life forms and the climates and the atmosphere. Moving through the development and the arising of the first organisms, reflecting on how these single-celled organisms began to become more complex, giving form to multiple, countless forms of life, of animals and plants. And then the rise of humans, and the changes that the land that we're living on and practicing on went through over these millions of years, thousands of years. We begin to think about the communities who cared for this land well before we arrived. These early civilizations and communities. Maybe some of them are so old that we don't have any record or evidence that they were even here, but maybe thinking about those people, those communities who we know about. Maybe those indigenous communities are even our ancestors. And thinking about their life and their caretaking of the land. Thinking about these lives and the labor they put into being in relationship to the natural world. Thinking about all of that, we begin to actually shift this energy of care that we're deeply saturated in from our benefactors, beginning to shift this energy of care into the earth, to release it, to offer it into the earth, to care for the earth, to return the care that it's been offering our ancestors in the earliest communities, to return that energy of care back. And we allow ourselves to hold the space for what has been lost, what has been disrupted, what has changed, what has been replaced. And to hold the space, we just recognize that so much has been lost. There's been so much violence. And we allow this love, this care from our benefactors and the enlightened consciousness of Medicine Buddha to actually begin to help us hold these narratives and these experiences of violence and harm and change. This is part of the labor of returning back to an experience of indigeneity, which means it's returning back to the heartbreak, back to the land, to the earth, back to naming what has been lost. While situating ourselves within this experience of just love and care that we first have to accept for ourselves in order to share that with others and with the land and with all beings. This practice of indigeneity is about coming back to the truth of who we are. Coming back to community, coming back to love, coming back to the natural world. Turning away from these artificial systems of hierarchy and violence. Turning away from bypassing everything and turning into where it hurts. And asking for the help to be there in the places where it hurts. And I wonder if you can connect to the vibrancy, the living, potent, life-giving energy of the earth. Can you feel that? Can you feel the consciousness, the livingness, aliveness of the earth, of the land? That despite the violence, the earth still remains alive and potent and life-giving. Can you begin to breathe that up into the body? But more specifically, I invite you to imagine breathing in, inhaling that vibrant energy of the earth into the first chakra, which is right in the tailbone. As if you're just inhaling from the earth right into that first chakra, the tailbone, which is the chakra of home, of foundation, of settledness, of connectivity, of groundedness. Can you activate that first chakra through this potent energy of the earth, which the first chakra is directly an expression of the earth, of the land. And if you're not able to be with the breath, just imagine just that energy just floating up, being absorbed by the root chakra, the tailbone, and by every chakra as we begin to move upward. Now shifting our attention up to the second chakra, just around the pelvis. Again, breathing up into that second chakra from the earth. This chakra, which is about creativity, also about connection, about sexuality, about eroticism. Breathing this energy of the earth into that chakra. Feeling the awakening of creativity and fluidity and eroticism, which is just a deep attraction and curiosity of phenomena. Just a few more breaths. And shifting up into our navel area, into the third chakra, the solar plexus. Breathing an energy of the earth into the solar plexus at the navel. The chakra of power, of energy, of heat, of transformation, of agency. Allowing the earth, the energy of the earth to awaken. Our agency, our capacity to transform, to transmute. Just a few more breaths here. Now shifting up into our heart chakra, which is right in the middle of the chest here. Breathing, inhaling from the earth up into the heart chakra. Feeling the heart chakra and the chest expand, open. Fusing this energy of the earth with this energy of empathy, compassion, love, sensitivity. Even fearlessness and courage, audacity. Awakening the brave heart. And the heart is brave because the heart helps us to love unconditionally. There's nothing braver than to love. Allowing the energy of the earth to fuse deeply with the energy of the heart. Just a couple more breaths here. And now shifting our attention up to the throat chakra. One of the most powerful chakras within the system. The chakra of communication, of speaking, of bringing things into reality. Fusing this energy of the earth deep into the throat chakra, awakening the throat chakra. Beginning to communicate with ourselves and others in a way that's direct and simple and full of kindness and compassion, but also full of wisdom. Just a few more breaths here. And shifting our attention up into our third eye, the chakra of piercing into actually the true nature of all phenomena. Awakening into pure wisdom. Beginning to see all the expressions of reality, all the folds and layers of existence. Beginning to feel it. Breathing this energy, inhaling this energy of earth into the third eye, grounding the third eye, and awakening it at the same time. A few more breaths here. Now shifting our attention up to the very top of the head, the seventh chakra, which we sometimes call the chakra of Brahma, the chakra that connects us to higher realms, to heaven, to the mother. Breathing deeply into, or inhaling the earth, the energy of the earth deeply into that seventh chakra. Because as we move up into these experiences of different levels of consciousness and different realms, we still maintain the energy of the earth. Awakening the seventh chakra. Preparing the seventh chakra as one day our consciousness will exit from the seventh chakra out the top of the head. When it comes time for us to transition into the bardo and spirit world. And slowly we begin to allow the breath, or just your basic visualization, to begin to fill the whole body, the rest of the body, not just the chakras, but the rest of the body, with this living energy, this living conscious energy of the earth. And as we practice that, we turn our attention to our main mantra, allowing the mantra to galvanize, to spark this energy of deep healing through the blessing of Medicine Buddha. O te atam begenze, begenze, ma begenze, rasa sumungate soa. Te atam begenze, begenze, ma begenze, rasa sumungate soa. Te atam begenze, begenze, ma begenze, rasa sumungate soa. Te atam begenze, begenze, ma begenze, rasa sumungate soa. Te atam begenze, Deyata Om Beganze Beganze Ma Beganze Rasa Sumungate Zoa Deyata Om Beganze Beganze Ma Beganze Rasa Sumungate Zoa Deyata Om Beganze Beganze Ma Beganze Rasa Sumungate Zoa Deyata Om Beganze Beganze Ma Beganze Rasa Sumungate Zoa Deyata Om Beganze Beganze Ma Beganze Rasa Sumungate Zoa Deyata Om Beganze Beganze Ma Beganze Rasa Sumungate Zoa Deyata Om Beganze Beganze Ma Beganze Rasa Sumungate Zoa Deyata Om Beganze Beganze Ma Beganze Rasa Sumungate Zoa Deyata Om Beganze Beganze Ma Beganze Rasa Sumungate Zoa Deyata Om Beganze Beganze Ma Beganze Rasa Sumungate Zoa. As we transition into the last second half of our mantra, you can continue to stay here with this practice of allowing energy from the earth to come into the body, or you can transition into this practice, which is beginning to share this energy of the earth if we feel that we can share at this moment. So if we feel that we're at capacity, that we can begin to share this energy with all those we've offered prayers for. We can begin to offer this energy to our ancestors, or we can begin to offer this energy to the unseen beings around us, particularly those beings connected to the land that we're on, including spirits of indigenous people whose spirits are still here with us, offering this energy of earth. But it's not just the energy of the earth, it's also being mixed with the energy of care from our benefactors. There's also the energy of Medicine Buddha's consciousness. So this potent energy, we begin to radiate out. So we can imagine that we're like a star, like Tara, who's the star that guides us, from delusion to wisdom and compassion. But imagine that we're like a star radiating this energy of care, of stability out to all beings who need it right now. Okay, and so we continue with our last part of our mantra. O Deyata Om Beganze Beganze Ma Beganze Rasa Sumungate Zoa Deyata Om Beganze Beganze Ma Beganze Rasa Sumungate Zoa Deyata Om Beganze Beganze Ma Beganze Rasa Sumungate Zoa Deyata Om Beganze Beganze Ma Beganze Begenze, ma begenze, raza sumungate soa, te aha begenze, begenze, maha begenze, raza sumungate soa. And so we begin to transition out of our practice and we turn our attention to our benefactor circle, our seven homecoming circle around us. We just begin to imagine that first we thank them, our benefactors, for their love, their kindness, for supporting us. We begin to imagine that they begin to dissolve into white light, and that white light is absorbed into our heart centers. And again, we dedicate our practice to the liberation of all beings, that all beings may one day develop their own consent to get free. And we pray that all the causes and conditions are present for them to get free once they make that decision. We turn our attention back to the earth, thanking the earth for its kindness, and as we transition out of the session, I pray that we continue to stay connected to the consciousness, the livingness of the earth, that we return back to the earth as much as possible in order to feel restored. And we continue to hold space for everything that's been lost and taken, all the lives that have been lost in this project of colonialism and imperialism. That we, in this moment, begin to make commitments to return back to our own indigeneity, to the earth, to honesty, to the heartbreak, to the compassion. We turn our attentions to our closing prayer from Shantideva's prayer, from the Bodhisattva's way of life. And we'll recite this 3 times. May I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed, just like space. And the great elements such as earth, may I always support the life of all the boundless creatures, and until they pass away from pain, may I also be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach into the ends of space. May I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed, just like space. and the great elements such as earth. May I always support the life of all the boundless creatures, and until they pass away from pain, may I also be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach into the ends of space. And finally, may I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space and the great elements such as earth, may I always support the life of all the boundless creatures. And until they pass away from pain, may I also be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach into the ends of space. All right. Thank you all so much for your practice. And I'm just going to check the questions to see if we got all the questions. Any tips for offering grief to the river, to the mother, etc.? When I offer, I want to really make my offer good. I am holding back a lot of the time, bracing around the grief. Yeah, well, the bracing is it's kind of an anticipatory relationship to grief. Like there's the grief, and we're also anticipating other things around the grief. And the thing about the grief is that over time we begin to use it to form a sense of self and identity. And to let go of the grief means that we have to negotiate who we become after the grief, right? So there's a kind of comfort that arises from being really fixated on the grief. So to really offer grief, we have to trust that we will survive. Like we have to trust that we will know who we are when we offer the grief to the river, to the mother, to the deity, whomever we offer it to, right? To let go. And sometimes that's what we're actually really afraid of, is like, who are we if we don't have these things around us that we use to form a sense of identity with, right? That's one of the trappings of samsara, is that we're using samsara and all the phenomena to create a sense of identity, which in fact our sense of identity should come from the experience of emptiness itself, right? The experience of space itself. Space should be defining us, not the contraction around phenomena, which is a lot. So you have to go and practice with that. That's what keeps us bound in samsara, is when we're using samsara to figure out who we are. I am learning to use space to figure out who I am, and the emptiness to figure out who I am. Freedom is about leaning into the space and letting yourself dissolve into the space, not leaning into the contraction and the fixations and the ego clinging, which grief is a part of that. Right? So it takes time to do that. So when we offer, if we're talking about the mother, when we offer to the mother, we also have to understand that we're being held by the mother as well. Like, we're not going to let go of something and then get dropped. We're going to let go and be held and nurtured. That's how that goes. And then for the review the translation of the mantra one more time. It's really just, there's actually not really strict, rigid translations of certain mantras. So, and the Medicine Buddha mantra is one of those. But there are mantras like Om Mani Padme Hum, which has a really very simple. Well, the translation is simple. The meaning is actually quite profound. But with the Medicine Buddha mantra, it's just like asking Medicine Buddha for healing. That's pretty much it. To bring about healing for ourselves and for others around us. There's, with a lot of mantras, there is an implied meaning that we focus on instead of the literal meanings. The literal meaning makes sometimes no sense at all. But mantra is about sound, right? And we don't have to be so precise. Like Sanskrit, which a lot of our mantras in Tantra traditions are pulled from Sanskrit. Sanskrit is so precise, right? Precise sounds, precise tones, and we don't have to really focus on that in mantras like Medicine Buddha's mantra. It's the intention that fuels, like, the power of the mantra. It's like, why am I chanting this? Where am I directing it towards? Okay, so we're at our time, so I'm gonna let everyone go. Okay, so everyone, please be well. Please continue to practice, and I'll see you again somewhere. Okay, all right. Thank you, everyone.